policy of keeping the media in the dark about ordinary police operations. And the question, I think, underlying all this detail...
He says, how much time passed between Number 10 first becoming aware and A, Mr Rock being spoken about them, B, the police being alerted, C, Mr Rock's resignation. I mean, some commentators have thought that it's a strange situation of democracy where somebody who's at the heart of government can be arrested and it takes a long while for anyone to know about it.
That's right.
OK, well, we'll come back to that, Nick. Let's go straight over to the House for PMQs.
Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, and in addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
It provoked a mixed response, I have to say, the focus on Ukraine and foreign affairs. Joe Moore, though, starting off on the positive, said today at PMQs was one of those rare occasions when both political leaders looked and talked like proper democratic elected politicians. Such praise. On Twitter, Flintwork said PMQ's all grown up this week. It's like a normal question and answer session rather than usual yobbishness. But Philip Jones tweeted boring questions from Ed Miliband on Ukraine at PMQs, and Ali tweeted the dullest PMQs in history. This from Jeremy Clark, Inverness in Scotland. Ed Miliband might as well have been absent today. He didn't ask anything of substance to real people suffering under the economic omni-shambles, the made-up employment figures and the printed money.
Sometimes you just can't win, can you? At least the mother... it is still very hard to pin down, though, Nick, and so has the new Social Democratic. We're just going to pick on a few oligarchs.
I think that there are two important things.
But will they do anything?
But will they do anything? I mean, the Germans are the key in this, because they have the biggest trade relations with Russia. As Nick has said, they are hugely dependent on Russian oil and gas, come from Germany. They amounted in the 9 months at a time when the German economy is struggling to recover from recession. I mean, most of Russia...
Short term.
What penalty did the Kremlin pay for grabbing two...
Well, long term, having weak countries on your border is not...
Let's talk to you about this, Nick, but we now know the policy of the Kremlin.
And it was only...
Nobody thinks that he is the rightful leader. I mean,
no, Mr. Putin does.
He does.
apart from Mr. Putin, but I think...
I don't quite understand what is the punishment for, if there should be one, for Vladimir Putin for pursuing a policy that either, you know, if he hadn't planned it, he is now pursuing. That hard, personally, his regime, his cronies, can you hit them that hard by freezing their assets?
Well, they already have been hit very hard. They are, on average, poorer by 20%.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Has collapsed. And
with respect, that's the kind of point I'm making. It's kind of creative.
You may be right, Andrew, that people will then say, well, is that it at the end? But I think they know they've got to say something. And what was interesting is that John Kerry...
Interesting that it was after the Russian stock market when he suggests
it did have an effect.
Financial, it may not be sanctions or anything that your governments, European governments would...
One final point is, we can't see it here, but...
Many question times left, so...
It's always nice when the wife turns up of a day. Nick, thank you.
Who remembers what now seems like a quaint tradition on Budget Day? Ken Clark at the dispatch box with a whiskey. Geoffrey Howe sipping a gin and tonic. Andrew, you might even remember Disraeli with his brandy. Who writes this? More recent...
I poured that brandy. And he said...
Recent chancellors, including George Osborne, just have a glass of water to quench their thirst, such is it these days. As in budget after budget since 2008, they have raised duty on wine and spirits by inflation plus 2%. In our soapbox this week, wine critic Peter Richards puts the case for calling time on the duty escalator. But without even a glass of bubbly for us, that was a pointed remark there. We're joined by Peter Richards. I mean, one of the issues is that alcohol has become more affordable, hasn't it? I mean, by 2010, alcohol was 45% more affordable than in 1980. So one could say, what are you complaining about? Because the general impression, though, if you do look back sort of 10, 20 years ago, is that there's a lot more variety out there and that there is a lot more good wine that is more affordable than it used to be. Well, what do you say to that? That actually it's counterproductive, that, you know, the point of it, probably for health reasons, but was also to raise revenue, is now working against you.
With regard to taxation.
Oh, that was very disappointing. So you don't think Peter's going to get his wish, then? Going to make a deal earlier on the programme. So why is wine, or why wine and spirits, being treated differently to beer?
2% of what's...
Are you middle class, Eric Pickles?
Well, I drink wine and I'm not middle class.
But is that why it's treating it there? Is it why not? Why not? Does Peter have a case here?
I think he has a case, and I to suggest that
they're so timid. They're so timid on this programme.
tax should be
We're
dropped.
shifty by nature. I'm
Yeah,
really
I can
sorry.
obviously. But let's look at the health reasons, because you say it's good. It's good for your health. I mean, it was brought in because there were fears about the cost of people who did drink too much, who abused alcohol, and the cost to the NHS and to the taxpayer. Do you not think that still is a very pertinent case to be made?
Look, the incidences of binge drinking are actually reducing as well. So I think that's the health argument. There is always, I would call for
To that and leave it there.
There are another 200 have been nominated
Oh,
too,
right.
so I wouldn't... is still, despite that list, with us in the studio. So how's the weekly bin collection coming on?
Well, we've protected 6 million people. What I've done is I've removed
Responsible for Northern Ireland or Scotland?
it's just-
In your case, not really, no. It could be at any time between now and the election. What about the sheep? Is it lots of sheep, or is it still Silence of the Lambs?
Well,
Time to be out of your misery. You've got to do Guess the Year. The year was 1990. Geoffrey Howe resigning, of course. Eric, bash that red band. We should see who's won.
Larry Hoyle in Manchester.
Well done, Larry.
Congratulations.
The mug is yours.
Yes, well done for guessing the year correctly.
Yep, that's it for today. Thanks to our guests. Clock News is starting over on BBC One now. We'll be back tomorrow at noon, as usual, with all the big political stories of the day. Do we know what we're doing?
No, but we're both going to be here, which will be nice, and I'll be here on Friday.
And I won't be.
Because you were here yesterday.
Exactly, I'll be in Edinburgh.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.